There are a lot of reasons I love baseball. The smell of freshly mown grass, the crack of bat against ball, and the inexplicability of the fact that these two men somehow play the same position. But what I love most about baseball does not happen between the lines. In fact, it really doesn't have that much to do with the game at all. The thing I love most about baseball is this, and this, and especially this. Often overshadowed by web gems, bat flips, and the subsequent arguments about said bat flips, is the time-honored art of the baseball prank. Baseball is unique among major sports for the sheer amount of downtime it affords its players. Unlike basketball or soccer, where constant action is periodically interrupted by brief interludes, the game of baseball is seemingly constructed with the complete opposite in mind. Look at it this way. In what other sport will you find an entire team, minus one player, confined to a room off to the side of the field for half the game? Critics call this downtime boring. I call it room to improvise. Dugout shenanigans are as much a part of baseball as the stolen base or the infield fly. It is an art form, and like any art form, it must be practiced. And in the art of the baseball prank, there has been no figure more distinguished than Moe Drabowski. Born in Poland in 1935, Moe Drabowski's family emigrated to the United States when he was a child. He shone as a pitcher in high school and college, enough to earn him a $75,000 contract from the Chicago Cubs in 1956. Throughout the beginning of his major league career, Drabowski found himself on the wrong end of multiple historic moments. In 1958, he gave up Stan Musial's 3,000th hit, and in 1963, he was the losing pitcher to Early Wynn's 300th career victory. In his rookie year in 1957, he tied a major league record when he hit 4 batters over 3 2/3 innings pitched. After bouncing around the league for a few years, Drabowski was eventually able to carve out a role for himself in 1966 as part of the Orioles bullpen, where he posted impressive ERAs of 2.80, 1.60, and 1.91 over a 3-year stint. Together with Stu Miller, Dick Hall, and Eddie Fisher, Drabowski helped carry the Orioles to the 1966 World Series, where he set a 1-game strikeout record for relievers with 11. He was selected in the expansion draft by the Kansas City Royals in 1969, but would return to Baltimore the following summer, where he won his second World Series with the Birds. Moe Drabowski retired from professional baseball in 1972. His legacy as a player, while not without its moments, was generally unexciting. So why, you may be asking, are we talking about him? Well, for most players, the game ends once they leave the baseball field. For Moe Drabowski, the real games had only just begun. They called him the Prince of Pranks. On May 27, 1966, the Baltimore Orioles were facing off against the Kansas City Athletics. In the second inning, the A's bullpen got a call from manager Alvin Dark, ordering reliever Lou Krause to warm up. Krause began his routine, only to be told to sit back down again by Dark minutes later. He was confused, especially considering that starter Ralph Terry was pitching just fine, with no sign of injury or fatigue. Krause's confusion only increased when, mere minutes after being directed to take a seat, yet another call came from the bullpen phone telling him to warm up once again. Only this time, the bullpen coach recognized a familiar voice on the other end of the line. It had been Moe Drabowski all along, imitating his former manager. When he wasn't exhausting the opposition's bullpen with crank calls, Drabowski spent his time concocting a litany of practical jokes, which he executed on opponents and teammates alike. Favorites of his included dropping goldfish in the rival team's water cooler, placing live mice in players' shoes, and depositing sneezing powder into the air conditioning system of the opposing clubhouse. "I have a mind that kind of looks for ways to throw monkey wrenches," he once said. "In today's world, you'd say I'm a computer virus." He was known to grill the occasional hot dog in the bullpen, and he held a funeral for a dead bird. During the off-season, he would call up his A's teammates pretending to be owner Charlie Finley and promise them all raises. Not even fans were exempt from Drabowski's reign of terror. On one occasion at County Stadium in Milwaukee, he tied a $10 bill to a string and laid it on a ramp near the bullpen. Sure enough, the perfect target appeared moments later, carrying 6 Cokes in one hand and a bag of popcorn in the other. As soon as he crouched down to pick up the bill, Moe jerked the string, startling the fan and sending food and soda all over the bleachers. But Moe's bread and butter, as many a teammate of his would testify, was of the Reptilian variety. See, during his time with the O's, he cultivated relationships with a number of pet shops throughout Baltimore. The stores would loan him their snakes, which he put to use terrorizing his fellow players. When he caught his coach Charlie Lau sleeping in the bullpen, he did what anyone would do, draping a 20-foot pipe over Lau's left shoulder and placing a 3-foot brown snake in the other end. 5 minutes later, the snake popped out onto Lau's lap, causing him to go ballistic. Over the course of his career, Drabowski managed to scare everyone from Brooks Robinson to Yogi Berra with his slithering accomplices. Before Game 1 of the 1969 World Series, he hired a plane to fly over the Orioles' Memorial Stadium, towing a sign that read, "Beware of Moe." Sure enough, the next day, a box arrived in the opposing Mets clubhouse, containing a large and thoroughly irritated black snake. Now, this next part of the story is going to require a bit of context. Among baseball players, there is one prank that stands out above all as the most difficult to complete, the most satisfying to pull off, and potentially the most dangerous to mess up. It is known as the hot foot. There are many variations on the hot foot, but one constant among all of them is that they end, as you might have guessed, with the victim's lower extremities being set ablaze. I could elaborate on the various hot foot techniques myself, but I think I'll throw it over to the experts, Roger McDowell and Howard Johnson.
Hello, this is Roger McDowell. This is my assistant, Howard Johnson.
Hi.
On this episode, we'll introduce you to the wonderful world of hot foot.
We also want to say one thing. This is not for you kids out there to try. This is done by experienced professionals. Surprise is the
Perpetrator.
Yes.
We're the perpetrators.
Yes.
The perpetratory. And we have gum in our mouth. It's already being prepared. Move quickly. Sometimes we have to go underneath the bench. St. Louis is particularly good for that because the bench is up high and it's like crawling in the rice fields.
Yes.
The paddies.
That's amazing. How does he do it? How does he do it?
Mirrors.
Mirrors.
Now you got a very good hot foot.
Let me show you my way.
Okay.
I take the gum right out of my mouth. You know, I know it's a little
gross.
It's a little gross and a little wet and sticky, but if it's your own gum, it's no big deal. I think they'll give us a raise for this.
Thanks, guys. Now back to Moe Drabowski. When asked about his penchant for the hot foot in a 2004 interview, Drabowski told the Baltimore Sun that he had set, quote, hundreds and hundreds. I'd go to some discomfort to satisfy a practical joke. In Detroit before a game, I crawled under a tarp behind the bench in the Tigers bullpen, threw ants and maggots, and waited until the guys stood up for the national anthem. Then I slid my hand out, lit several matches, and waited for the screams. Drabowski gave Sun reporter Jim Elliott so many hot feet that Elliott began staring at his shoes during post-game interviews. Drabowski simply lit his notebook on fire instead. So when it came time for the 1970 World Series between the Baltimore Orioles and the Cincinnati Reds, many fans were disappointed to hear Moe declare that he would not be engaging in any pranks, explaining that such activities could backfire during an event like the World Series. The series set off without a hint of theatrics, malarkey, or tomfoolery from the suddenly mature Moe Drabowski, and by the end of the series, the Cincinnati clubhouse emerged unscathed. Commissioner of Baseball Bowie Kuhn, on the other hand, was not so lucky. During the Orioles' victory celebration, Drabowski ran a 40-foot trail of lighter fluid all the way from the trainer's room to Kuhn's soul, where he had planted a book of matches. he lit the fuse and sat back to watch the chaos unfurl. The fire snaked its way up to Coon's foot, where it exploded in a ball of flame. Moe would later remark, "It lit Bowie up good. You never saw a shoe come off so fast in your life." Following his retirement from playing, Drabowski returned as a pitching coach, where his infectious enthusiasm rubbed off on his students. "The kids adored him," said his wife Rita, whom he married in 1990. And while Rita might have been off limits to Moe's pranks, his pupils were not. At Orioles fantasy camp, he would send firecrackers under bathroom stall doors. After games, players who committed an error would be draped around the neck with the brown rope award. Thanks to Moe, sometimes the brown ropes would let out the occasional hiss. Moe Drabowski passed away in 2006 at the age of 70. At the time of his death, baseball writer Rich Marazzi noted that Drabowski would surely be remembered as an MVP, a most valuable prankster. What often gets lost in the discussion about how to quote-unquote fix baseball is that it's supposed to be a game, and while the powers that be are free to introduce every measure imaginable to try to speed it up, I, for one, feel the sport is at its best when it's allowed to be itself, along with all the weirdness that entails. As a boy in South Dakota once put in a letter to Moe Drabowski, baseball needs more nuts like you.